joining us for today's Points of View conversation with choreographer Val Caniparoli. Born in Renton, Washington, Val opted for a professional dance career after studying music and theater at Washington State University. He received a Ford Foundation scholarship to attend San Francisco Ballet School and performed at the San Francisco Opera Ballet before joining San Francisco Ballet in 1973. Throughout his career, Val has created more than 200 works for ballet, theater, opera, symphony, film, and television. In addition to his longstanding association with San Francisco Ballet, for whom he has created more than 20 ballets, more than 60 dance companies have presented his work, including the Finnish National Ballet, Ballet Met, Joffrey Ballet, Hong Kong Ballet, Smewen Ballet, Ballet West, where he was resident choreographer from 1993 to 1997, Washington Ballet, Israel Ballet, and Tulsa Ballet, where he was the resident choreographer from 2001 to 2006. One of his most popular ballets, Lamborghini, was nominated for the Prix Benoit de la Danse in 1997 for Best Choreography, and it was also featured on Sesame Street. The Metropolitan Opera, Chicago Lyric Opera, and San Francisco Opera have all commissioned Val to choreograph operas. His work with the San Francisco Symphony includes the Rimsky-Korsakov Opera Ballet Mulata, conducted by Michael Tilson Thomas. And with American Conservatory Theater, he choreographed A Christmas Carol, A Doll's House, Arcadia, A Little Night Music, and Tosca Cafe, a new movement theater piece with Carrie Perloff. His full-length evening ballets include Lady of the Camellias, 5 different productions of The Nutcracker for Royal New Zealand Ballet, Cincinnati Ballet, Louisville Ballet, Grand Rapids Ballet, and Tulsa Ballet, co-created with Ma Kong, as well as Val Caniparoli's A Cinderella Story. He's a recipient of 10 grants for choreography from the National Endowment for the Arts, an artist fellowship from the California Arts Council, and has twice received the Chu Sang-go Award from the Chu Sang-go and H. Robert McGee Foundation for Lamborghini and Open Veins. Dance Bay Area honored Val with an Isadora Duncan Award for Sustained Achievement and twice for Outstanding Choreography. And he was also honored to have been selected to choreograph a pas de deux for Evelyn Hart and Rex Harrington for the Royal Jubilee Gala for Queen Elizabeth in Toronto. Val is most closely associated with us, San Francisco Ballet, his artistic home for over 50 years. He first worked under the co-artistic directorship of Lou Christensen and Michael Smewen. He continues to choreograph for the company under artistic director Tamara Rojo, while also continuing as a principal character dancer. So welcome, Val. Thank you for taking the time to be with us this morning.
Thank you so much.
So we're going to focus on your new ballet for the Next of 90 Festival in our conversation today. And I know that many of our audience members already know you very well over your 50-year association with the company. But I do want to go back a little bit to start off the conversation and ask a bit about the early part of your career as a choreographer and how you got started in choreography, and if you always knew that that was something you wanted to do, or how it really started for you as a dance maker.
Well, what's unusual about my career is I really didn't start dancing until I was 20, maybe even 21. I studied music, theater, literature, and all sorts of things with Washington State University. And I spent like 3 years there. And in the theater department, I took a ballet class from a visiting ballet company. And the woman said, "How long have you studied ballet?" And I said, "Well, never." And anyway, she put in my head that I could possibly be in ballet. So I ran away, I say, to the circus, which is like I ran away from school. My parents almost killed me, but I got a Ford Foundation scholarship with San Francisco Ballet School. Lied and said I was 16, and they believed me. And within a year, I was dancing with San Francisco Opera Ballet, and then right after that, San Francisco Ballet. So my background is so diverse. It's not like what a lot of other dancers, their experiences would be if they started 8, 9, or 10. So I just always knew there's a meaning. Why did dance, and why did all these other subjects prior to this? And it just, the light bulb hit me when I was watching others choreograph, and I went, this is what I meant to do. So I did a lot of work with schools and all over the area, Bay Area, and I just started, getting the experience, and eventually being hired by Pacific Northwest Ballet with Kent Stoll and Francia Russell to create my first work. And it was like 1979 or 1980. And the rest is history. And then Michael Simeon and Lou Christensen found out I wanted to choreograph. And so I got more chances with San Francisco Ballet. So it really, I came through the back door. It was, I'm still pinching myself that I'm still here 50 years later.
How quickly did they find out you were not, in fact, 16? When did you have to fess up to the extra 4 years?
I don't think anyone ever asked. My hair wasn't white back then. So the subject never came up.
So I do want to focus a great story of how you made your way into dance and into choreography. And as you said, it's now been 50 years with this company, and you are creating a piece in this 50th year that you're with us. And I wonder if you could just start by telling us a bit about this ballet in particular and its genesis. You know, where did it come from? Is it an idea you'd had for a long time? Did it come to you quickly? What is its backstory?
Well, I came into this in an unusual way, just like how I came into the company and unusually, in that I wasn't originally scheduled to create a new work for the 90th festival. And I got a call that very last minute, but it was Benjamin Millipede. He had scheduling conflicts, and that Helge and Tamara asked if I would possibly be interested in filling in. And this was really crazy because I think I had 2 weeks, maybe less, to prepare for this. So this is not my normal process. I'd be working a year and a half on maybe finding a piece of literature, finding the music, figuring out concepts, finding the designers. I do that. I collaborate a lot. So this was a whirlwind of finding the music, which isn't easy. And then once you get the music, what are you going to do with it? So it literally was a different approach. I had great support by Helge, and Tamara particularly just said, I know you can do it with your experience and your knowledge of the company. I know you can do it. So she was very encouraging, which put me over the top of going, yes, I'm going to do this. So I love the challenge of it, finding the music, and then getting the rights, which sometimes takes months.
Yes. Yes.
I found this music and I loved it. And immediately it just started rolling quickly. So I was very lucky. And it's Dobrinka Tabakova. She's Bulgarian. She lives in London, and she's not really known, but she's up and coming. And I love the music, the intensity of it. And it sort of fit in conceptually. I had no time to do a story. I also had constraints of the dancers. I want to say constraints because the dancers in this company are amazing, but I had to use the amount of dancers and the dancers that Benjamin used. And so that was something, but they were all amazing. So that was an issue. But getting the concept, the dancers, the designs, the music quickly before I started. And working with ACT and Carrie Perloff, she always would say to me, what do you have for free? I had for free an amazing company, amazing support, great music, and a concept that I came up with quickly, which was the state of affairs right now of how we are all feeling as an artist, and coming out of hibernation, I call, but in not knowing, not just dancers, but everyone in society, how do we react? It's almost like people don't know how to react out in the open again, and all the conflicts of that. And we still don't know, is there a new disease? Are we going to be put in isolation again? There's that anxiety that we're all having. Plus, we've got the war, we've got environmental issues, we got LGBTQ issues going on, and racial equalities. We got all the stuff that we're all involved in. We're not in a bubble here, and I can sense my feelings and their feelings. And we just started this ballet with that in mind. And I'm saying, we're all in this together. I know my issues right now. I don't need to know your issues, but whatever they are, use that in the choreography, use that as motivation for you. So the intensity of this, and hence the word emergence, coming out of our bubble, and and trying to go back into society again as much as we can. There's this weirdness, uneasiness, what's even under the smiles we all have. But there's something about this concept that I really just grasped onto, and we ran away with that in rehearsals, which is exciting.
That is. And I was going to ask, it sounds like your normal process is to spend quite a bit of time in advance of rehearsals, preparing and getting everything together. And this one was much more condensed. So was it different when you walked in that first day in terms of how much you had prepared, or had you just crammed it all into 2 weeks?
The thing is, I never prepare a lot of choreography. I have in my head maybe a beginning and an ending or something. I've got goals within it. So in that way, I don't think it changed the way I work. Mm-hmm. It changed what I came up with. It's an odd thing. There's so many ways that I do work. Sometimes I have the music and I motivate the music. Sometimes I have the concept. I have to find the music for that, which is harder. Or it's a story ballet, or it's an abstract. So there's never one real way. Or with Lamborena, I'm bringing in African dance consultants. That was different. No one else did it back then. And every work I do, there's a different process, but preparing, like you said. But once I'm in the studio, it's pretty much the same. And it's hard to describe for me, but I have my way of doing it. But yeah, so it was interesting in the fact that it was such a quick, it's like you're shot out of a cannon and you go bam. And again, I love when I'm challenged. And I love it when directors come up and say, I want a full length, I want a Cinderella, but you can't use Prokofiev. Are you interested? I go, yes, and I did it. Or, many different things like that. But I love the challenge. And as long as we had the time to do it, and that was organized, working closely with Alan Villarreal, he's like the director of artistic operations. Just for him to help with that puzzle, because we were rehearsing Romeo and Juliet, I think Giselle at the same time, and Nutcracker, and it was hard to fit in my time. Working with him was great. Also, what was amazing is having Joanna Berman, the new rehearsal director, appointed. And I've been creating on her since she was 16. And the fact that she was I was her first choreographer to work with, it was the right fit. And she knows how I work, she knows how I move. So that was great to have. But yeah, some things fell into place too, so.
Well, and I was going to ask about that. You mentioned about you've worked with Joanna for so long, and it's wonderful that she is back with the company now. And, you didn't get to select exactly which dancers in the company you were working with, but you've known, I'm sure, all of these dancers in the company, probably since they were in the school and doing Nutcracker as kids and whatnot.
Some of them, yeah.
So, how is it different for you when you work with this company versus when you've worked all over the world? But what is it like to be working here? What's different or special about this place and these dancers?
Well, it's, again, there's a familiar, I can't even say the word, I'm familiar with the company. And it's home, it doesn't make it easier. Expectations are high, and it's like, but you're working with the same people. So you whether it be the production people, the wardrobe people, or the lighting people, or the stagehands, you're familiar with that, and it makes it much easier. When you go into another company, you don't know those people. You don't know how they work, how they're going to react on stage, a stage manager calling, or the production person, or the wardrobe people, are they going to make the costumes like I like them? But I'm just familiar with this company, and that makes it a lot easier. I actually create on many of the same companies. So I have a lot of homes away from home where I'm asked to come back, which is amazing. So that works in my favor too. It's harder going into a company where you don't know the dancers, you never created on them before. And that makes it a little more difficult and how you start, a little bit, because they don't know your body movement, how you like to move and such. But again, it's everyone's familiar with me and vice versa. And they know they can contribute, they can collaborate with me. I'm not up there as a dictator saying, this is what I be. I want to hear what they have to say. as a dancer, those are the choreographers I loved working with that let me have a voice. And I was always aware of that.
So you've spoken a little bit about the music, but tell us, if you would, anything else about the rest of the creative team working on this piece.
Well, I have, of course, Jim French, who's lighting all the pieces, but I've used him in so many other works. Amazing. He just did the lighting for my new full-length Jekyll and Hyde for Finnish National Ballet, which is going on again in April. And he's familiar with me too. I love giving him free rein because he's so
good.
But I've been using Jim French, so many different companies and smaller companies, larger companies. I just love the way he works and how he collaborates. And Susan Romer, who used to dance a lot of my works, she's been creating a lot of my designs recently. And her collaboration, I love working with her and just discussing things and hashing things out. And she's come up with amazing designs. So I have a really great team, but boy, did I need it the last minute. Just that support, and they had my back, and the dancers too. They were amazing to work with. Some of them I had never worked with before, but they were there for me. They were there.
Well, and I want, are there, I don't know the answer to this question that I'm about to ask, and I didn't prep you for it, but are coming out of the pandemic and having sort of lost these last couple of years in some ways, we haven't had one of your works on the season since before the pandemic. Is that right?
Right.
I think that's right. Does it feel like there are more dancers around who you haven't worked with before because it's just been a little while? Is that?
Absolutely. There's a lot of answers that I don't know. It's because I do go away a lot and come back, so commissions elsewhere and stuff. But again, and a couple of them were those dancers that were, because we have two casts,
right,
that were new to even seeing my work, I'm sure. So they were there 100%, no matter what they knew or didn't know about me. But yeah.
That's great. Well, so with that, I'd love, we have a little behind the scenes clip or clips from your rehearsal process, and we're going to take a little sneak peek. All right, so tell us about what we're seeing here.
This is Lucas Ernie and Angelo Greco, and this is like an interval right before the last movement. So this is the transitional movement and I was just working with these two men together in their relationship and such. And we were just experimenting here a bit.
Beautiful, just really beautiful flowing movement. It was really lovely. I love that moment where they take hands,
Right.
So sort of casually, but in the midst of the dancing. Lovely. So this is not the first festival that you've participated in here at San Francisco Ballet. What's special for you about these festivals when Helgi brings a whole lot of people together for a couple of weeks of new work?
Yeah, it's meeting a lot of new people, and it oddly enough, I know a lot of these choreographers from other places we've worked, and in this case, there's a lot of new ones that I haven't worked with or seen their work, but it's great being around and sharing thoughts and ideas and how's it going, how's it working, So that's great. Just seeing a lot of, but also these festivals bring a lot of people in from the outside, and they will experience your work, some of them for the first time. So the exposure is amazing. With the 75th that I did Ibsen's House. Consequently, many companies picked up on it and performed it after that. So just the exposure and just and being able to see so many different styles and way people work, and I love it. I mean, it's special. It's different.
And then I have one last question before we kind of conclude this interview. But you are all over the world, right? Working with different companies, and I'm curious about what out there in ballet right now is really interesting or exciting.
What's great is the use of female choreographers and choreographers of color. And it's great seeing that now. And it's not to where we should be, but it's really happening. And I love seeing it's starting to happen. And it's also good for audience development. We have to develop other audiences, and audiences need to see themselves on stage, and it's important that this is happening. That's what I'm finding what's important right now. And it's universal, it's worldwide right now. And it's exciting.
Well, that is kind of the set of my questions and what we have time for today. So I want to thank you so much, Val, for taking the time and chatting with us and with our audience members. And we're so excited to see your newest piece premiere in the Opera House.
Great, thank you. Thanks.
Hello, everybody. I am so pleased to be joined today by Bridget Breiner, one of our choreographers for the Next at 90 Festival. Bridget Breiner returned to the United States to create a ballet for the Next at 90 Festival after working in the European dance scene for many years. This ballet will be her first creation for San Francisco Ballet. As a child in Columbus, Ohio, Bridget began her dance training at Ballet Met Dance Academy and continued at the Heinz Bossel Stiftung in Munich, Germany. She was a member of the Bavarian State Ballet in 1992 under Constanze Vernon's direction. In 1996, she joined the Stuttgart Ballet under the direction of Reed Anderson and quickly became one of the company's most celebrated dancers. From 2006 to 2008, she danced with the Semper Opera Ballet in Dresden under the direction of Aaron Watkin. And her distinguished dance career has led her to direct Ballet im Revier from 2012 to 2019, and to her current position as the director of the Staatsballet Karlsruhe. The Stuttgart-based Nouvelle Society presented Bridget's choreographic debut on its Young Choreographers Evening, and since then she's choreographed for the Stuttgart Ballet, Le Grand Ballet Canadien, Latvian National Ballet, and among others, including, of course, now San Francisco Ballet. Through the years, she has combined ballet and opera in her works and is really well known for her narrative ballets. In recent years, she's created adaptations of Shakespeare's The Tempest and Romeo and Juliet. And in 2018, she presented her own version of the iconic Firebird Ballet for the Grand Ballet Canadien. Bridget is a two-time winner of Germany's The Faust Award and is one of the few female artists to have received this award twice. So welcome, Bridget. We're so pleased to have you with us today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So we're going to focus today really on your piece that you're creating now for San Francisco Ballet and really focus our conversation there. But before we do, I do always like to go back to the beginning and ask you to speak a bit about how you got your start as a choreographer. Is choreography something you always knew you wanted to do, or did it come to you a little bit later in your artistic trajectory?
I really had to be nudged in the direction of choreography. I was very obsessed with my career as a dancer. It was completely consuming. I wasn't looking for something else to do artistically. And I had a very good friend who worked in opera, actually, who said, you need to try it for your artistic development as a dancer, even if it's horrible, even if you don't like it. It's important for you to stand on the other side and see how these things are made. And I can only recommend it to any dancer. Stand on the other side, see how it's made. You'll enjoy your own process as a dancer so much more.
That's great. And so what was that first piece that you got your fingers in?
The first piece I did was a 4-minute duet that took 4 months to make. I used 2 younger dancers in the company, and it was really a very slow massaging of the work and each other to get there. I think that started also my interest in working with younger, less experienced dancers and like finding movement from people who maybe don't have it right at their fingertips. That was very exciting for me.
And once you got in there and started working, like, was it like a flip switch? You knew right away that you wanted to keep doing it, or did it still take a little time too?
Yeah, I did. I really wanted to keep going after that. The very next piece that I did was already a story ballet, a 15-minute narrative, and I had a lot of ideas, especially then. I had a lot of ideas right at the beginning.
So tell us a bit about this piece that we're going to see here in San Francisco. It's your first time working with us and coming back to the United States. So what can we expect to see, and maybe a little bit about its genesis? Is this an idea that's been in the back of your head, or is it something that came to you when Helgi called? How did this come about?
This was not in the back of my head. This took a lot of digging. I was really excited at the chance to work with San Francisco Ballet. The dancers are fantastic. I mean, no one can say anything to the contrary. It's really been great working with the dancers there. Because I direct companies, I often think in terms of full-length ballets. So I've done lots of narrative ballets, but they tend to be 2 acts over 2 hours, stretch out the development of the characters. And I have found that a half-hour narrative ballet is quite challenging. But I decided that I really wanted to find something that I could tell in 30 minutes. And the company manager in our company is someone I've worked with for many years, and he has a musical background. And he introduced me to Benjamin Britten's I just forgot how to violin concerto, sorry. And said, oh, maybe there's a Salome in there. And I heard it immediately, like what he was talking about, I heard immediately. And since we've spoken since then, I didn't do anything that he expected. It's really a completely different thing. But there's something kind of mystical in this music, and something archetypical I find in the music. And I found that I couldn't let go of this story. I don't really like the story. I find it quite a problematic story, to be honest. Yeah, but it pulled me forward. Somehow the music pulled me forward. And then luckily the dancers did too.
And when you're working, do you often start with the music? Do you start with a narrative idea? Where does it maybe typically for you, where does it begin?
Yeah, I usually start, when I'm in the studio with the dancers, I start with the text. I've done a lot of Shakespeare because I find his words so inspiring on many levels. And it leads me to movement that is new to me. I find it really helpful to find new kinds of movement. In a case of an existing score, of course, you start with the music as well, so you're working simultaneously. But if I'm making a ballet from nothing, I will often just pull music from all different corners and not even decide until the month before what music will be in the ballet, which drives everyone crazy. In this case, we had the music, and it really guided the arc of the piece.
So I always like to ask about the first day in the studio and what that looks like. You know, what do you come in with? What are you sort of waiting to see in what the dancers bring to you? How do you start at the very, very beginning?
I would say I'm a dancer first. I really was someone who danced a long time, and I was choreographing while I was dancing. So a lot of movement begins in me, but I don't come in with phrases worked out. I like to do that with the dancers. And like I said, I use a lot of text. So for this ballet, even though I'm not so interested in his complete interpretation of the story, I used some Oscar Wilde to get us started from his iconic play. We used sometimes paintings. There are a lot of different representations of Salome. We found, we couldn't even find who the author was, and we found a poem. When I say we, the designer and I found a poem about Salome that brought it in yet another direction. It was just really good to find there's a moon phrase and a violence phrase and a desire phrase and a love phrase and a faith phrase. And, you know, there are all these different emotional levels that we took from being inspired by text, actually.
And I have to imagine when working on a narrative work, and maybe particularly a narrative like Salome, that the dancers themselves are bringing so much to the table. Yeah. I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit about who you were working with in terms of our dance company and what it was like working with the people who are doing kind of the main roles in this work.
Well, they brought a ton. It's a very short process. I guess that's clear that these ballets are created in 3 weeks. It's really unusual to do something that quickly and that intensively, to have that much time put together. And so I really was grateful that I could rely on the dancers to take it somewhere. So my king and queen are Tiet Hellemets and Jennifer Stahl, and they're their physicality is already says quite a lot. I mean, they both have a very noble physicality, but it was really fun to see where they would, how they took the outline of a character and filled it out with something else. Yeah, I was really inspired, and it was not at all what I planned. Likewise with Wang Wei and with Sasha de Sola, who are the prophet, and we call her the daughter rather than Salome in this piece. Partially because that relationship, the relationship mother to daughter, is quite important for the way I'm telling the story. With both of them, it was really fascinating to see how little little ideas that I would give them could be expanded quite quickly. And with Sasha in particular, she has a number of solos that are almost improvised at the moment. We will probably nail it down a little bit more when I get back in January. But she had a bunch of step material. We turned on the music. I told her what she was supposed to be saying, and for 2 minutes, that's what she did. It was amazing. It was quite exciting to watch.
Were you familiar with the dancers, with the company at all before showing up, or did you go watch company class your first day, or you were given your little group? Kind of how did that casting process work for you?
Yeah, that I really don't know the dancers from before. I think perhaps I ran into Teet years ago at a gala or something, but I didn't really know anyone besides him. I watched class. I worked with them for 2 days. All of them created material on everybody, and the casting fell into place. It was quite lucky. It could go much worse. You could decide, I want to tell this story, and then find there is no Salome in this group of 20 people, and that would be difficult. But it came together quite well.
It's wonderful. And I have to ask, because you mentioned that you find Salome a little bit of a problematic story, and you were mentioning all the Oscar Wildes of the world and whatnot, right, who have told this story before. I feel like it's mostly men who have.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Which probably doesn't help that problematic nature of it. And so I'm wondering, as a woman and as a female choreographer approaching this story, what do you feel like you're bringing that has a different, I'm sure you're bringing something very different to it. And I'm wondering if you can articulate that a bit.
Yeah. Oscar Wilde made the story famous again, let's say, because you have to think in the Renaissance, it was also a favorite subject of painters and sculptors. It was really, they loved gory things, I guess. But Oscar Wilde created a femme fatale in his portrayal of Salome. And she was, I can imagine at the time when he wrote it, and it was a bit scandalous. It was also a way of women showing their power. Now, 100+ years later, it feels like a different box for a woman to be in, and that's what that's what didn't attract me to it. What I find interesting in the story, if you go back to the biblical telling, the girl is not named. She has no name in the Bible. It came from historians, from other chroniclers of the time, that she's called Salome, but she's kind of a minor character in that story. And her mother is the power figure. And that really interested me, this idea that the mother could push her daughter so far, or her daughter needed love so much from her mother that she would willingly have someone executed, that was the thing she did. And that's what we address a little bit. I mean, it's a 30-minute ballet, so we address it a little bit, but I tried to keep it quite open. There are a lot of abstract elements in the choreography as well. So I'm hoping people can see their own things in it, that it's not just all coming from me.
So you've spoken a little bit about the music. I'm wondering if you can speak about some of your other collaborators on this work, sets, costumes. What can we expect to see on stage?
Yes, I have the good fortune to work with a collaborator who I've worked with him for forever, for most of my choreographic career. We've done a lot of narratives together. His name's Jürgen Kierner. He's German. He's somebody who he works in tiny little theaters, and he works in huge theaters, and he works in opera, and he works in ballet, and he works with Tanztheater. And so he brings a perspective that's really helpful for me if I maybe slip into things that I danced, for example. It's really easy to kind of slip into what I know. And he always has a fresh look at it. So he's, the costuming is, I suppose it gives a little bit of a hint of something historic, but it's not grand in any way. We wanted to keep it as simple as possible. I actually told him, let's start with them in a leotard and see what we need to add to make it clear who they are. And that's it. We don't want more than that. We do have a little bit of a set. As at the moment, there's still some questions about what can work and not under the conditions that we're working in. So I think I'm not going to tell you about the set for right now, but it's all from Jürgen Kierner, and he's someone there's a lot of back and forth between us about how things should be told, and that's really helpful.
So you said you worked with him through much of your choreographic career. How did that relationship begin? Where did you start working together?
I was commissioned to do a piece for Kevin O'Day's company in Mannheim, which is quite close to Stuttgart. I was still dancing in Stuttgart at the time. This was someone that Kevin had hired to do that evening. He was one set designer for the whole evening. I think I thought he was a bit odd to begin with. And then we really hit it off. And yeah, it's a wonderful working relationship and friendship.
It's so nice. I mean, you're the second person I've spoken with who said, the person I'm working with on the design is someone I've worked with over multiple pieces. And it seems like coming into a new company and a new environment, and you're making your first piece for this audience, having that trust with someone on your team must be really nice, just to, and then go back on there.
Yeah, it's also exciting for both of us. I mean, I am American, but have not really worked in America, performed a few times, but not, I haven't been commissioned for anything there. And for Jürgen, he's never worked in America. So it's also been interesting trying to think about the story of Salome, for example, is a story that is extremely well known in Germany because of the play, but also Richard Strauss's opera is a huge part of the repertoire here, everywhere in opera, but I think it's in the German consciousness. And then we suddenly realized it's not quite on everybody's mind in the United States. So that's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time.
Did you find when you told the dancers that it was the story of Salome, was that something that they immediately were like, oh yes, I know the story, or was it kind of a mix?
No, I think, well, actually, they were being very polite and listened to everything I had to say. I should ask now. I'd be very curious. I think most of them had heard the name, but didn't really know what to connect to it.
The details.
Yeah. No, sorry. Of course they knew, because there had been Arthur Pita did a version of Salome not so long ago. So many of them had that in their mind. That's how they know Salome. And as I haven't seen the piece, but as I understand it, was also a very particular interpretation of the story.
Yes, very specific. Yeah. It's a very sort of specific interpretation. But yes, that was, oh gosh, I think it was either 2016 or 17.
I think so, yeah.
Around there. So I imagine that your interpretation will be quite different for our audiences. I don't think there's going to be a lot of overlap. So we do have the opportunity to look at a little sneak peek of a rehearsal clip. So do you mind telling us a little bit about just sort of situating us within the ballet in terms of what we're going to see, and then you'll be able to talk over the clip that we look at.
Yes. Okay. So the moment we're going to look at has something to do with I have to give a little backstory. Sorry. The queen, the mother of Salome, the queen, has remarried her husband's brother, and not acceptable. It's not acceptable. the religious community is looking down on it. She makes the step, one presumes it was a power move, that she's looking for power. And her new husband is Herod, and in this case played by Tit. The moment we're going to see is the prophet Wei accusing her and him both of adultery, virtually, and basically calling the fires from heaven down on top of them.
All right, let's take a look.
So I set it in it's a non-specific space. I mean, you have to imagine basically an empty stage here. You can see that the group is abstract and real at the same time. I think that they become a little bit more realistic here, like in a standard story ballet. They're listening to him. It was quite interesting to discover, how does one talk about listening? How does one show listening without standing? And of course, this is a moment where you do see them standing a lot to listen, but how do we understand that they are listening, in this case, to what he is accusing Jen of? You see Jen in the blue on the left, but also what he also brings promise and hope in another part of the ballet. And that's something that was quite challenging to show through movement. In this case, you'll see it's nothing specific. You don't see him specifically showing what he's accusing of. It has a lot to do, you understand it a lot from the music and from her reactions and the way he performs it, but he doesn't do a lot of gesturing. It's, I'd say what we saw now with Jen is probably the most realistic ballet mise en scène that you'll see in the ballet. Everything else starts to get a little more symbolic.
Yeah, it's so interesting because really the story is being told in movement, not through mind, right? They're not like pausing to,
yeah,
right? It's all integrated in.
I try. I mean, and I have to say, this is one scene where I'm wondering, when I go back, will I try to get it even a little bit less mimed, a little and a little bit more physical. Sometimes you just have to let the people understand what you're trying to say. But if there's any way to do it through physicality, I find that a really beautiful challenge for a choreographer.
We've had the opportunity to really talk about this piece that you've made. I want to, before we wrap up, zoom out a little bit. You know, I always say one of the wonderful things about these festivals is we get to see so many choreographers come here to San Francisco and tell us a little bit about how they see the world of ballet, right? And you see all these visions of it right next to each other. And so I'm wondering, you know, what are some of the things that you find really exciting in ballet as an art form right now, from your vantage point as a director, as a choreographer, as a former dancer? What's kind of next for you, or what interesting little glimmers are you seeing around the field?
I think dancers are the thing that are interesting. We don't have an art form as choreographers unless we have fantastic dancers who can interpret and inspire. Technique grows and grows and grows, and at the same time we want to advance, but we also want to look back and know where we're coming from. I find that, particularly as a director, I find that really challenging to think, how do you maintain this quite old technique and bring it into the future, and how far do you go with that? And what I do love is that because it's a human body, it doesn't change that much. The legs are higher, the turns are more, but it is still 2 arms and 2 legs, and they still function the way they always did. And we can do more with them, but we can still learn quite a lot from our history of dance. Yeah, that's what is exciting for me, to look in both directions.
I think that's a great place to end. I want to thank you so much, Bridget, for joining us and taking the time out of your day across time zones and distances to talk with us and share a bit about your process and your upcoming ballet with our audiences here. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Points of View lecture. I'm really pleased to be here today with Yuka Oishi, who is one of our choreographers for the Next at 90 Festival. Yuka is making her United States debut in Next at 90, is the first Japanese choreographer in San Francisco Ballet's 90-year history to create a repertory work for the company. She began her dance training at Masaka Oha Ballet Institute in Japan, and then joined the Hamburg Ballet in the 2002-2003 season, where she was promoted as soloist in 2010. Since 2015, she's been working as a freelance choreographer and dancer. Yuka's been active not only in the field of ballet, but in musicals and music videos as well. She choreographed Renku with Orkin Dan for the Hamburg Ballet in 2012 and received the Rolf Mars Prize for the most outstanding production of the year. In 2018, she choreographed a piece called Couve, the Béjar Ballet Lausanne, which drew influence from Japanese culture and brought the dancers' bodies to move poetically throughout the stage. Yuka's also choreographed for Bundesjugendballet Ballet, Origin Festival Cultural, Sadamatsu Hamada Ballet, the Tokyo Ballet, Takarazuka Review, Shoku Nakamura, Natalia Osipova, Sergei Polonin, and Jill Roman. And we are so pleased to have her here with us today. So welcome, Yuka.
Thank you very much for having me here and introducing me. Thank you.
You're welcome. We are really excited to get to talk to you today about your new ballet for the Next at 90 Festival. But before we jump into talking about that piece and its creative process, I want to start kind of at the beginning. Can you tell us a little bit about how you started as a choreographer and, what inspired you to start to make work?
I was 16 years old when I started to make my own choreography. And it was not just not that I knew how to make a production. It was the composition class as a subject at the Hamburg Ballet School, and we all had to choose the music, dances, and to make a short pieces. And I had no idea. I had no study. I haven't studied anything of contemporary work, modern dance, no education at all. And I didn't even know that there is such a job existed, actually. And then somehow, not knowing what to do, I managed to create a few minutes of a piece. And then teachers were very complimentary about my work, and then advised me that I might have a talent for making choreography, and that I should continue to make one short pieces every year. So since then, I just followed the advice and I continue making one. And then, of course, John was very, very supportive for those who wanted to create, who wanted to be part of this kind of creative ideas processes. So gave us a lot of opportunities for young choreographers who wanted to do something. So I always had an opportunity to show my pieces. And then, of course, that was the year 2012 when John asked my colleague Orkin Dan and I to make actually the whole evening piece for Hamburg Ballet, which was called Renku. And so that was our first really huge evening to create. And
sorry, John being John Neumeier of the Hamburg.
John Neumeier, yes.
The artistic director of Hamburg Ballet, just for our audience to know.
Yeah, thank you. And then we revived the piece 2014. And then that year, 2014, somehow I met one audience who came to me in tears and said to me, "Thank you, Yuka. You made me to live tomorrow, like in the light." And then that changed the point of view as myself as a choreographer. And I thought, okay, if I'm able to make someone happier, if I'm able to give some kind of light to someone, I have to continue doing that, right? So then I went to John Ermeyer and talked about that, what I felt, and I was not college enough to say I will become one, but I asked him, like, do you think I might be possible to become one? And then he told me that, Yuka, I think you're ready. And you have to jump in, otherwise you don't know what's going to happen. If you feel like, try it, I will support you. So then that was the biggest, actually, the push from my director. And so I was like, okay, next season will be my last season, and I will try to make my way possible as a choreographer. And that's how I started. And that was 2014 when I talked to him. And 2015, I started freelancing. So it's just a few years ago, actually.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's not, especially with the pandemic, it's not that long, right, that you've really been doing this.
Yeah, that's right.
You feel like it was you feel confident about the leap that you made and feel like it was the right thing for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm never really confident enough, but I have a lot of passion to this. So, and most of the time, it's not just me who is making the work. I feel like there's always someone around me trying to make the project possible. And with this energy that I can keep on going. Otherwise, it's very hard to be always, motivated or like a very connected in a different level. But support of the others, I'm able.
So I want to dive into this piece that you've made, Bolero, for San Francisco Ballet.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about how it came to be. What can we expect? What's the concept, if you're willing to share? And, when did it first come to you? Has it been like percolating in the back of your mind? Did it come to you when Helgi called? Like, how did it come into existence?
Yeah, so I started thinking about this piece about a year ago, which is October 2021. Of course, after Helgi told me or gave me this opportunity. And then, I thought about what I'm going to do. I knew that it's going to be about 25 to 30 minutes production. So what would fit also with the dancers in the company and what I would like to do. And then, of course, that was the year 2020. We all know that was a huge pandemic year. And at the same time, I was pregnant with my son. Now he's 2 years old. With pandemic, my pregnancy, and also I had to face death very strongly. So it was just a year of strong awareness of life and death for me. And somehow the birth of my son was an event that opened my eyes for the universe. in a new way. And I felt like inside of my belly was the universe itself, and in that universe, a little life was born, and I felt that so strongly, and realized that each one of us was born this way, right? Like we don't born from the seeds, right? So, and that we, like ourselves, are the universe. That was very strong realization for me. And then the opposite side, when I faced the death, somehow my feeling, my emotions stopped for a long time. And then it was very difficult for me to even to think about new production, because my heart was kind of stopped feeling. Yeah. And then, of course, I had my team who I'm going to introduce later, but who will do my images for the video images. And I was talking to him, and he was actually, just listening to me, what I'm going to say. And, there were so many meetings that we did, and I never came to the point exactly what I would like to do. And he asked me, Yuka, where do you want to go? And I'm like, sorry, but my heart, I cannot feel it. And then he was still listening to me. And then one day, suddenly, it just clicked. And then I wrote one poem, and in it, I wrote that the kiss of death and rebirth is our heartbeat. I try to give it a visible form for this rondo of death and rebirth. And this is a bolero, what I made. And why bolero? Why I chose that music is when I heard that music, I felt like this continuation of rhythm was like our heartbeat. And then the melody was kind of pulling all that rhythm together. And towards the end, I felt as the soul of the music was shouting to me, live, you can live. So then I knew exactly I had to choose this music. Yeah, sorry, I got emotional. Yeah, so that's why I chose this music. And then, yeah, the idea is quite deep, but I tried to make this piece as a some kind of light to us, to human beings, that I hope it will be the energy of living today, tomorrow, and yeah.
It's beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful to see how affected, even after the creative process, how much it still is with you. This, it sounds like this ballet is coming from such a deeply personal experience, and what you've gone through in the last couple of years. And I'm wondering if that is where many of your ballets come from, if that's where you start, or if this is a little bit different for you coming out of the pandemic and with these life experiences, and it's a new way of creating.
I think to say, every work, it has to come from very deep inside of me. And I try to be very naked, my heart to be naked in front of especially dancers, because that affect the audience as well. So I try to be very neutral. I try to be myself. So that that's also why it's very scary thing that you never know today if I'm able to be so naked. Yeah, my heart to be naked. But that's what I try always. And then yeah, this time, of course, with pandemic, with life and death situation, of course, that created another level of the working process. Yeah, that's definitely yes. But I think it's my way of working as well.
When you came into the studio at the beginning of the process, how much of this, what you just shared with us, did you share with the dancers, or did you just start with the music and the move? Like, where did you start for them in your creative process?
Yeah, so as I told you, I try to be very naked with myself, and that's and a lot of energy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have most of the time more than 10 people, 15 people in the studio. You know, they're all waiting for what I'm going to say, what I'm going to do. And I find that's very important time, because I'm taking their time as well. And the motivation, right? And then so I try to be the most energetic, how do you say, enthusiastic, and like a lot of energy. And that's how I try to come in the studio and try to share as much possible of who I am, what I feel, and try to also get from the dancers the touch of essences, that what they have from the body itself, because I think for the dancers especially, they don't, we don't use the language as a as talking language, but body starts to talk a lot, and I try to read that more than words talking. I try to kind of understand the person from the body language, dance language. And this is a beautiful moment. Sometimes you don't really need the words, and we just connect in a very unique, very spiritual, I think, connection. We just look at each other's body and we understand everything. So they affect me, and as well, I think I'm affecting them in the studio. Yeah.
How familiar were you with San Francisco Ballet's dancers, before you walked in that first day, or was all of that kind of emerging as you were getting to know them and they were getting to know you through the course of the process?
Actually, I was trying to watch the classes, like ballet classes in the morning. Most of the morning that I went just a little bit earlier, the working days, and then try to understand the dances, analyze, not technically. Like for me, very important to get to know a person. And of course, we don't really have time to just like talk. So to understand the dances, I was like very watching carefully how they move and the body language is. And then, of course, after we started to work together, and they were so open to me, and everyone said that because I was so open to them, but I think has to come from both sides. And I think more than the technically work, that what we found with each other was this connection, the collaboration that made us possible to do that. And it's not usual, I think, that someone just steps in the room and actually say, do this, do that, right? I know that as a creator, we're doing kind of egoistic work, right? Because we decide, as a creator, we decide what to do, when to do, and how. So this is a very sensitive what we are doing here. And but still the process was very smooth, that we could talk, we could take from each other. It was not like me in front and they just do their work. It was this collaboration sort of feeling, which came already from the early terms of the work, and which was making me feel very comfortable working with them. And just gave me positive energy just to create, because for the creators, we have to be very feeling free and to be ourselves. Otherwise, nothing, no connection is coming. For example, to me, like I don't connect, then I get panic, and then that's it. There's no creativity process happening inside of me. So it was amazing. And at the end, we could hug each other like so tight. So yeah, maybe it's just short time if you think of our lifetime, but the intensity of the creation is really, for me, is the jewel part of my work.
So you mentioned earlier about one of your collaborators working on video, but I wondered if you could tell us, tell us a little bit about your team, what we can expect to see and who they are that you're working with.
Yeah. So for the costume designer, I have Emma Kingsbury. For sure, many of you or most of you know her. And I'm so happy to meet her, because we can talk about many things. I think there is some kind of similarity that maybe in the family, or the way how we think, or just can connect very well. Also about the costume, for the work, she has the ideas that I don't have. At the same time, that I think it's both way, from the both side, like is opening the eyes a little bit, like, oh, that's good, like that, and that's good, like let's do that. So when we decide something, it's quite quick and very new for both sides. Yeah, so it's very fun working with her. And another collaborator is, of course, the one who is composing music before the Bolero. His name is Shinya Kiyokawa. He's Japanese. He's usually creating music for commercials, also, as well as like short films. He is not just composing classical music. So very unique. He's also very fast in his brain. I don't know how it's working. So when we have a creative meeting, he's just listening to me, and so quick. He's like, okay, I will do. And he sends me already in a few days. Yeah, result already there. And this time I didn't use already composed music because Bolero is just so big and it's already all done. You know, it's all in there. So I was like, okay, what to do? And then, of course, I had to decide, okay, we have to create a composed music. That was the only way, which would fit our ideas, which would fit Bolero idea, first of all, as music. So it's kind of building up the tension and then explode at the end, right? So so that's my another collaborator. And as the last, I have a video projection this time, which I thought about it, I don't know, 10 to 15 times. Is that really possible? Is that really the right things to do? Because, you know, when you have beautiful dances, beautiful music, you have huge stage, beautiful lighting. What do you need more, actually, right? And then to use a video projection, like Yuka, you know, what they're trying to do. But why I try to do is I'm looking for a collaboration always. Doesn't matter if that is a dancer you know, who does any kinds of dance subject, right? Or if that is a video, if that is musician, if that is acrobat or a musician, whatever collaboration can be possible with the dancers on stage, I'm trying to do. That's for the future, because there's many things are already done, yeah. And for me, collaboration is so interesting because we have totally different backbones, and we can learn from each other a lot. And there is still, okay, there is collaboration happening already, but I think the collaboration can be even more intensely happening. Intensely means like well thought, more meetings, more artistic collaboration. It's not like, you know, let's put A and B together and let's make some kind of thing. It, you know, has to be all together connected. So that's what I'm trying to do. So that's why I try to speak with, by the way, his name is Jun Nishida, who is creating a video. So in the first process of the Bolero, I started to talk with him, and we had about 10 Zoom meetings. Yeah, we talked every time like more than 2 to 3 hours. Like sometimes this didn't go anywhere because I was just talking and didn't, you know, like nothing actually was clicking. So he was just listening to me for like 2 hours. And he was, that's very interesting, but where do you want to go? I'm like, okay, great. But still, you know, I think that was very important for the process. And you know, we found finally where it has to go, the core of the piece we found. Yeah, at least I found, and I could make that poem, and so I could send to all the creativities. And so we actually worked from that one poem, just as an idea, as a start of something to imagine. So, and you will see the very unique video projections, will be happening, of course, back at the back. And of course, we spoke from the early process. It cannot be, moving too much or too fast, because I want to see the dancers. So it has to happen in the right amount of the lights and moving and what's going on. But we actually worked from the beginning together, so the ideas are quite rich it's giving another layer of, like, it's like a pie we created, I think. And so costume, choreography, lighting, video, of course, as a top is the dancers. I think everything became like a pie, and I hope that will be very tasty at the end.
Sure.
Yeah,
I'm
so
sure.
when you blend all together, it's like yeah. But
They all play together and work together, right? I love that. I love that analogy. So we do have the opportunity to look at a moment.
Sure.
Let us know what we're looking at here.
Yes, this is like pumping the heart. And this is circle. She's making a circle. This is a for me, the continuation. And this is, of course, like female, male energy is kind of sort of manipulated together, and he's lifting her without stopping. This is a continuation of those energy. And then now we are all jumping. This is, again, it's like for me, there is an image always of cells. How to say, in the blood, those circles, like always
blood cells moving through.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, how beautiful, yeah.
Image.
That's a great, no, it's such, I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen that image in dance before, but when you say it like, you see it, you really see it in it. It's lovely. So we're coming up on the end of our time together. So I want to ask one question, kind of looking toward the future. What's so exciting about these festivals is bringing everyone together in San Francisco, and you get to see all these different ideas right now, all these different creative impulses all put on stage at the same time. And I'm wondering, for you, what are some of the things that you're finding interesting or exciting in the field as you look around? If they're dancers or choreographers or ideas or companies that you just think are doing really interesting work right now, where would you point our audience?
Yeah, I think dance is a very kind language, and but at the same time very honest. And this is very sensitive, but very as I said, very kind language, which we can use as a dancer, as a creator, and as a creator, whatever we imagine in the head, if we are not making it as a seeable, how you say, like as a visible, nobody can understand. We cannot share. So that's what we are trying to do. I think as a creator, we are trying to make what's here visible, try to share. And this process is, of course, very special, but I think already as a beginning from our side, we want to share for the dancers. They want to share as well as the body, and then this dedication of the everyday work and try to be the top of what they are today. And that's already touching, I think, and without using our powers, we use different brains and emotions to create something and to share with as much as audience, and this audience will bring that gift of what they got and try to share again to the others, I think. And that's maybe it's a slow steps what we are doing, but still I think it's the beautiful way of sharing and thinking about the other first of all, not just about yourself. And this night at 90 festival is making those opportunities very wide open to many artists, not just the dancers or the creators or collaborators. I think it's opening to the world itself, and trying to be, as I said in the beginning, to try to gather the lights and then can spread it out. Yeah, that's what I feel. And also when I work in San Francisco for a few weeks, the energy I have got from the staff, from the company, that was light for me. Was not this just working sort of atmosphere, because when you just think of work, it's like it can be good sometimes to just like go, but you have to feel your emotion, you have to be yourself, you have to be human, and then you have to feel this energy of light. And you all gave me that, so I could continue creating in a very calm and fine. I was very positive, and I'm very thankful, and I was very aware of that. And I think it's very unique and powerful festival and light. And I for sure it will continue and will be amazing festival.
Well, that's a perfect place to end, I think. As we all look forward to the festival happening in January and February and seeing Bolero on stage. I was excited to see it before, and I'm even more excited to see it after our conversation. So thank you so much, Yuka, for taking the time to be with us and with our audience today, and best of luck as you get your piece on stage.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Please visit the website to learn more about San Francisco Ballet's 2023 season and our many educational offerings.